Hey guys, welcome back to the Oilers Fanatic. Today I want to do a new updated goalie target video for the Edmonton Oilers. There has been lots of talk recently about the Oilers scouring the goalie market. The Oilers are currently in negotiations with Mike Smith and are contemplating a buyout or trade for Mikko Koskinen. We also have to remember that the Oilers do have goaltender Alex Staylock under contract for next season. Since I started this channel, I've gone under the assumption that Mike Smith will be back. Mikko Koskinen will be gone one way or another, and the Oilers will bring in one new goaltender. Elliotte Friedman of Sportsnet had this update late yesterday. In goal, it sounds like they are juggling multiple balls, from Mike Smith to someone younger. And David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period had this update today. The Edmonton Oilers had another conversation with Mike Smith's camp on Friday about a new contract, and as the two sides try to hammer out a deal, Oilers GM Ken Holland is also exploring the trade market. The Oilers recently tabled a multi-year offer, but it sounds like the dollars were lower than what Smith was expecting. His side was expected to counter at some point, and that could have been part of yesterday's discussion. As those negotiations continue, Holland is assessing the trade market for another veteran goaltender. It sounds like adding a goalie via trade may have more to do with replacing Mikko Koskinen, should the Oilers buy out the final year of his contract, than it does replacing Smith. Holland is also on record stating he wants Smith back. Clearly the money hasn't been enticing enough for a 39-year-old netminder who could be playing in the NHL until he's at least 41. But how might the addition of another goalie affect Smith's mindset, especially if the other netminder may end up splitting the load with him? Something to consider as talks carry on. It looks like the Oilers are exploring all options and could possibly be entertaining the idea of having two new goaltenders next season. Though obviously, it's still very possible, and probably most likely that Mike Smith is back. A scenario I haven't touched on for a long time. Could we see a new goaltender brought in and then see the Oilers utilize a fantastic cap savings in goaltender Alex Staylock? Staylock is signed for next season at just a $785,000 cap hit. Staylock hasn't played in a year and a half, so there is big risk in that. But if he came back strong, could there be a great reward too? We will come back to that. Let's get started with some targets for the Oilers. I've selected targets from both the trade and free agent markets, narrowing down my selections to what I believe are the most likely targets. Let's start with the free agent market. From what we've heard, Chris Drieger appears to be the Oilers' number one free agent goalie target. And as many of you know, I would love it if the Oilers could find a way to land him. Teams are exploring the possibility of trading for his negotiating rights from the Florida Panthers, and I think it's the right move. You have to take advantage of any opportunity to get ahead. If Drieger's rights are going to be acquired, we should see a deal happen fairly quickly. If you're a team that's acquiring him, you want as much time as possible to negotiate a deal with him, and he would most likely be the goalie you protect in the expansion draft. You can wait until after the draft to complete the trade, but as I mentioned, that really puts you on the clock to get a deal done. If the Oilers acquire him early, or end up just signing him come free agency, I think the Oilers could lock him in around $3 million per year on a 2 or 3 year deal. It's always possible a bidding war happens and the price goes up slightly from that. All the more reason an early acquisition would be more appealing. Here's a look at Drieger's numbers from the past few seasons. If the Oilers land Drieger, I think he could be a number one goaltender for us. I see him in the same vein as Cam Talbot when he came over from the New York Rangers, a goalie ready to break out. If Drieger is signed, I don't think you need to sign Mike Smith. If you can make the money work, it would be a strong tandem, but I would be willing to try a tandem of Chris Drieger and Alex Staylock next season. The price point would be fantastic, and if Staylock falters, his contract is small enough to bury in the minors, and the Oilers can try and bring in a replacement, and it shouldn't decimate them. My next free agent target is Linus Ullmark from the Buffalo Sabres. I haven't discussed Ullmark much, because I assumed he would be re-signing in Buffalo. Well, it still hasn't happened yet, and it's looking more likely at this point that he intends to test the market. With the current state of the Sabres, you can't really blame him. Here is a look at Ullmark's recent numbers. Ullmark has battled injury problems and has played behind a terrible Sabres team for the past few seasons. The general consensus is that if Ullmark could get out of Buffalo, he could flourish on a strong team. I believe Ullmark is a number one goaltender as well, and would give us the option of running an Ullmark-Staylock tandem. No question Ullmark and Smith would be a safer bet, but the option is there. I think you're probably looking at around 4.5 to 5 million for Allmark, and he will want some term. Another potential target is Peter Marazzick. Ken Holland has the history with Marazzick from Detroit, and we know he's checked on him already since being in Edmonton. Marazzick had another strong season last season with the Hurricanes. Here are his numbers. Marazzick wouldn't be a number one goalie for the Oilers. He would need someone to split the net with. If the Oilers end up targeting Marazzick, it likely means Mike Smith has re-signed and they are running with that tandem. He's not the sexiest choice, but a Marazzick-Smith tandem could potentially work well for the Oilers. A dark horse candidate for the Oilers? Philip Grubrauer from the Colorado Avalanche. I think Grubrauer stays in Colorado. I'm not sure why he would want to leave such a strong team, unless money becomes an issue. But if that's the case, I'm not sure if the Oilers should be sinking huge money into him. He's good, no question, but the Oilers have a lot of holes to fill. Let's take a look now at my targets for the goalie trade market. Darcy Kemper has been on the Oilers' radar for a few years now, and it's because he's pretty much a perfect fit. A strong, steady goaltender that the Oilers know they can count on. Acquiring Kemper can also provide you with your exit plan for Mikko Koskinen. They share the same cap hit of $4.5 million for next season, but Kemper is actually owed $5.5 million in real salary. It's an immediate $1 million in savings for the Coyotes. The Oilers could then add a sweetener of a picker prospect to close the deal. Here's a look at Kemper's numbers. I can't see Kemper still being in Arizona next year. The Coyotes have Aiden Hill as their goalie of the future, and I could see them re-signing Antti Ranta to back him up. If the Oilers can be the team to pry Kemper out of the desert, it will be a huge win. Next up, Tristan Jarry and Marc-Andre Fleury. It's no secret that the Pittsburgh Penguins would love to get Marc-Andre Fleury back, and if they can pull that off, Tristan Jarry is on his way out. If Vegas and Pittsburgh do that swap, logic would probably dictate that Jarry goes back to Vegas in the deal. But that's not a certainty, and of course there's no guarantee a Fleury deal even happens. If Jarry is moved out of Pittsburgh or Fleury out of Vegas, I would take either of them on the Oilers. Fleury is coming off a Vezina winning season, Jarry a not as glamorous one. Here are their numbers. If the Oilers land Fleury, they can definitely go with a Fleury-Staylock tandem. It would probably be a necessity with Fleury's cap hit. If the Oilers landed Jarry, I would want a Mike Smith or another 1B goaltender playing with him. He is far less of a sure thing. Here's a quick look at Alex Staylock's numbers. I think Alex Staylock has the potential to return as a great backup goaltender. You just worry because he's been on the shelf for so long. He's a risk, but at $785,000, not a huge risk. As I said before, he can be buried if need be, and might even be claimed if he was put on waivers. If you have the right goalie in front of him, I'd sign off on him as the backup next year. Well guys, that's my list of Oilers goalie targets. I think the Oilers goalie tandem next season will be found in these names. I would rank them in the following order. At number 1, Marc-Andre Fleury. Number 2, Chris Drieger. Number 3, Linus Ullmark. Number 4, Darcy Kemper. Number 5, Peter Marazzick. Number 6, Mike Smith. And number 7, Alex Staylock. Here are my top 5 guesses at the most likely tandems we will see. Mike Smith and Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper and Alex Staylock. Mike Smith and Peter Marazzick. Mike Smith and Chris Drieger. Chris Drieger and Alex Staylock. The Oilers have 3 strong goalies in the system with Stuart Skinner, Ilya Konovalov, and Olivier Rodrigue. I would think the hope is that one of these guys can emerge as a backup goaltender next summer. The Oilers' future in goal looks promising, but the present must be addressed. Fingers crossed that Ken Holland can deliver this summer. What do you guys think? Who would you run as your goalie tandem? Sound off in the comments below. Enjoying the videos? Please like and subscribe for all the latest Oilers content. You've been listening to The Fanatic. Thanks for being a fan.